Hey Quincy, it's Dr. Scott. Has some feedback for you on your literature review draft. I read your email and it seems like you had some issues putting together your literature review, and I get that. I kind of had questions about it because I don't want you to freak out, but there were places where I wasn't sure how the scholarship you were finding was relevant to the study that you're wanting to put together. That being said, like it seems like you found really kind of fascinating things that are about religion and history, but I didn't always understand how that kind of translated into a discussion about perceptions of history and how religion might impact those perceptions. Does that make sense? If not, like we need to talk and talk pretty quickly. So this screencast, I'm just going to comment on a few things that I noticed in your lit review, but that relevance issue, that's something that's really kind of important that we need to talk out and we need to make sure it gets addressed in the revision of the literature review. So I'm going to send the screencast to you as a link to a YouTube video. I'm also going to attach this document so that you can take a look at the notes that I have. And there might be a little bit of gray highlighting, which means things are kind of vague or confusing to me. You might hear some stuff in the background. It's Saturday morning at our place, and the dogs bark at everything. So there's that. Okay, so let me go through your literature review and kind of talk about what I noticed. So again, things are like super interesting from a historical perspective, and I dig history. So I kind of enjoyed learning about some of these things. I did think in the introduction here there should be some kind of overview of the different trends that you found in your research. There's the way your research is, or the way your literature review is organized right now. It's by topic that you found, or not topic, but by source, and that reads more like an annotated bibliography more than it does a literature review. A literature review should be some kind of organization of the literature that you found based on general themes that you've identified in the literature. So if we're talking about perceptions of history and how that's impacted by religion, you might have evangelical Christians and how that's impacted how they view history, or maybe Episcopalians and maybe more traditional Protestants, how they've viewed history and how religion has kind of impacted that perception. That's just one way. Maybe that's a shitty way, but there needs to be some kind of like trends that you've identified. Right now it's kind of like this source says this and this source says that, and I'm not always able to understand how these things are kind of connected to each other. Okay. I don't think you necessarily need to comment on the kind of sources that you found and whether or not you were happy with what you found. I mean, it's just going to kind of be evident in your literature review what research you're able to find. Now you can comment on gaps, like if you notice that there's a gap in the literature, I think that's totally relevant, but I think what you had up there in that first paragraph, you probably don't need it. This is a place, like when I read, and this happened a few times when I read your lit review, there were several places where I was scratching my head wondering, how does this help Quincy do a project about religious perceptions of history? Or how religion impacts people's perceptions of history. Like this seemed like a source, this Salem witch trial source. It seemed to be about how religion was important to a historical event, but not necessarily how history has clouded how people look at historical events. So two pretty different things. And so if there's something in here with the source that was actually helping you do that, that needs to come out, because that's really what the project's about. Your project is not about religion and its impact on history. Your project is about how people view history differently based on their religious affiliation, or how religion kind of informs their views of history. So if there's something to that in this source, that needs to come out, because right now it's more about, yeah, religion was important to the Salem witch trials, but not necessarily maybe like this is how people from these different religious groups view this historical event way back in the day. I hope that makes sense. If not, like let's chat pretty quickly. Okay. Like I said earlier, I have a little note here. It just says organized by concepts, not articles. That refers to the earlier comment that I made about how you've kind of set up your literature review at this point. It's by source and not necessarily by concepts that you found or themes that you found in the research. And that's kind of a main theme. The slavery ideology, I get that that's maybe a theme that you found, but it's not helping me understand how this is going to impact your project as a whole. So those two comments, it's really the gist of what I'm trying to get across to you. One, be careful how you're organizing things. Instead of just kind of listing sources that you found, think about how you can kind of group those together. And then those groupings, they should help inform your overall research project. So if slavery ideology and the Salem witch trial, like if those are somehow really important to your project, like you have to kind of explain how these themes or how these groupings are going to inform your qualitative research project. I'm not seeing that just yet, and I think you've kind of come to your research question a little bit late, but that's totally fine. Like I think you have a really good research question. We just need to make sure that your literature review is actually setting up your research project. Right now, this is kind of setting up a more like an archival research project, if that makes sense. So I think that's it. No, I got another comment down there, but this is the main comment, like making sure that you're explaining how these sources and how your literature review is relevant to the overall research project. That kind of needs to happen. But what also needs to happen is maybe rethinking how you're organizing your ideas in the lit review. Okay. I did see a couple places where it was more obvious to me how your research was going to help your project. And this right here, talking about how people associate particular religions with particular historical groups of people, like the Confederacy was typically associated with a particular kind of religion. I would say that about the North too. Like there was a certain kind of religion, like usually Protestants, like Presbyterians and like the abolitionists, like they were using religious arguments to fight against slavery. So like people do, I think, look at or associate different groups with different religions. That seemed to be a little bit more where your project was going. But again, it wasn't abundantly clear to me how this really kind of helped you in your research project. Okay. You say right here, each of these sources mention things that are relevant to my research question. I think that hits the nail on the head. Like you're saying that, you need to show that. So in those sources, when you're talking about them, explain how it relates to your overall research project. That and how you're organizing ideas. That's really where the work needs to be right now. I'm happy to help you with this. And you weren't in class on Wednesday, so we had I kind of decided on the fly to cancel classes next week and to meet with everybody to talk about their IRB applications and their literature reviews. So it looks like Monday or Wednesday at 3:20 works. If that works for you, let me know. If it doesn't, let me know when you might be available to chat. And so let's chat about the lit review, and I'll also have some feedback on your IRB application the day before you come and meet with me. Okay, so let's chat soon, and let's get the project rolling. All right, I'll talk to you soon.